say hello. Be sure to drop in the comments and say hi. Let us know where you're watching from and how you got here. I always like seeing who's here and just like having y'all a part of the conversation too. That's like one of the reasons that we do this live so that y'all get to ask questions, and y'all can ask Karen questions today, and I'll bring those in whenever it makes sense. But yeah, Karen, welcome to the show. I'm excited to talk about brands and brand photos and all the things with you today.
Well, hi. Thank you for having me. I'm Karen, aka the Black Digital Queen.
Yes, I love it. I love the neon above you too. It's just like
Thank you.
ties everything together. It's perfect. Awesome. Well, yeah, how did you get into like brand photography and all that? Did you like shift genres from something else, or was this like you started writing brands and started going that way?
Well, funny enough, kind of got to go a little way back a little bit. I went to school for photography, loved it, was the quote
Cool.
unquote family photographer. I thought I was going to be a fine art photographer and sell my portraits for $10,000. That did not happen, obviously. But
As we all do.
exactly.
Yeah. We're like, we're gonna have these galleries. People are gonna come from all over the world.
I'm not going to have to work a day in my life, boom, I'm set for life. There's no business behind even just trying to figure out, artistry and commercial, sellability. But I ended up falling into being a photo editor and producer when I did an internship when I got my MFA. And I was working, I went back to the UK. I was working for this custom publishing company called Ink.
Yeah.
And they were basically doing like airline magazines, like custom puzzling for airline magazine. I had no idea this could be a possible career. And I loved it. I knew that I wasn't going to be a photographer, but I found something within photography, which I love. I love production. I love being behind the desk. I love the logistics. I love organizing. I get to go on shoots. I get to be creative and be able to create a vision and find artists that perfectly fits that vision. And so when I started, God, over like 15 years ago, I was in editorial space. So I was like Southern Living, AARP, and then I moved across country to San Francisco, where then I was in photo director at San Francisco Magazine. And then because I was in the tech space, then I kind of fell into brand/tech entertainment photography. But here's the thing, here's the secret, because you always thought, oh, there's this separation between, that space and editorial. Like, no.
Yeah.
It's what brands want is editorial looking photography. So it's like, it kind of was a natural fit. And I always say there isn't like this big, oh my gosh, secret or like thing to brand that is making it allure or like this magical like aura around it.
Mm-hmm.
But, brand, in sense, it's just the only difference is you're producing for a company, you're producing for a product, you're producing for, the look and feel that goes to their target kind of audience for them to buy the quote unquote, whatever the product of what that brand is trying to sell. Yeah. Versus storytelling, more storytelling of a story, more story. Sorry, that's like repetitive words, but for editorial.
Yeah. Yeah. And almost like you're thinking of the story that they're needing to tell for their clientele. Exactly. And yeah, no, I do love the parallels, because I think there's like a separation from a lot of people. I know like I've been talking recently with a lot of like family and wedding photographers who are thinking about doing something more commercial, more brand work, product based things, where you're not like working on the weekends and like missing basketball games and dance recitals and that kind of stuff. But like there seems to be this disconnect of like, well, I've been doing this, like if I've branded myself as a storyteller and candid photographer and all that, and like kind of making that mental shift into doing something that is not so candid, because you're like literally setting every little detail of everything up. But yeah, no, I love that like how you were saying that, like there's so much parallel of storytelling into like being able to tell the story that the brands need for the
Mhm.
photos. Yeah. Yeah. That's something. Could you like maybe expand on that a little bit more of like how we can like getting into branding photos and taking those, like how we can kind of wrap our minds around like this,
Mhm.
and you're not necessarily making the photos for your client but
Mhm.
more of your client's client.
Okay, so in my book that's coming out in May 13th,
Yes, yes, the
The Photo
photo
Hustle,
hustle.
this is kind of how my approach of it. And I always like to preface, this is my opinion. This is just coming from my own experience and being in the industry from kind of the hiring side and working with different types of brands, which I've loved that experience to have kind of the foresight. So what I'm about to say is that I always tell photographers they want to jump in all of a sudden and they come to me and like, I want to make money and I want to shoot commercial, I want to shoot brand. First, you got to do your research. And kind of
Yeah.
how I focus it is like, okay, you want to go in brand. Okay, first I say go back and understand your why of what you why photography. Why is it that that's the medium of choice? I feel like it's not taught enough, or it's not, you don't see it around of people really sitting down first and understanding. Because I'm all about not wasting time and money, throwing
Hmm.
spaghetti on the wall and seeing what sticks. First, figure
Right.
out kind of your why. What
And
do you
being
want to be
honest with
doing?
yourself about the why and not just like
Exactly.
regurgitating what everyone else says their why is, instead of
Exactly.
like, actually no, my why for getting into photography was like it was a really low, like I could
Mhm,
buy a $300 camera and be decent,
mhm.
and like figuring out what actually is your why. Yeah, no, yes, 100%. Okay, so figuring out our why and then moving on from there.
And then understand, okay, then what, okay, you know your why, but then, okay, then what do you ask your question, what do you ultimately want to be doing with your photography? What are
Mm,
those brands you want to be shooting? What kind of photography you could be, or do you want to shoot food? Do you want to shoot still life? Do you want to shoot portraiture? Really figuring that out, then doing the research of, okay, I want to be a food photographer. Say I've been in the food space, I've been shooting, client, local mom and pops and stuff like that. I want to shoot Taco Bell, I want to shoot McDonald's. We'll say that in the kind of fast food space. And I always say, okay, go and start doing a visual audit. What kind of photography are they putting out there? Right?
mhm.
Who are the photographers they're hiring? Who are the photographers also in the space doing the work you ultimately do? Because like, do your visual research. You're seeing how they're positioning themselves. You're seeing what's in their portfolio, right? What's missing from your portfolio. Now, again, you're not copying, you're not trying to follow a trend, but you're seeing this, okay, nothing is new under the sun. You're seeing, okay, maybe I see how they're structuring their galleries. I'm seeing what they're putting on that's attracting the clients that you ultimately want to be shooting for. Then you're taking that, remixing it. And I think the most important thing is now starting to develop your own visual eye. That's the key. I think a lot of photographers come to this space and they're like, okay, I have to shoot everything. And I always say, I caution, like, if you try to be everything to everyone, then you're no one.
Yeah.
We on our side have a creative brief, right? And then we are trying to find the artist that is fitting that style, the vibe that we're going for that campaign or for those set of ads and stuff like that. And what creatives, we're creatives, by heart on our, the hiring, creative directors, art directors,
Yeah.
photo directors. We want to see beautiful work and we want to see artistry. I always say that, you know, almost, everyone knows how to use a camera, but not everyone knows how to take a picture.
Mhm. Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, even my 4-year-old,
Mhm.
she was taking photos yesterday of just, like, the things in the backyard, and she was, like, making a vlog too, just walking around like, "Hey, everyone, we're" I was like, "Okay, we've been watching way too much YouTube." Um, but yeah, like, everyone, even toddlers, can operate a
Yeah.
camera. We have like those
Mhm.
tiny little toy cameras. Like everyone's got one in their pockets with their
Mhm.
iPhones. But yeah, creating a
Mhm.
photo, creating that moment is not for everyone.
And I say for trying to pivot into brand, it's like really understanding your own artistic voice. Yes, when you shoot
Mhm.
brands, you will have to play in a sandbox. But I always say 90% of the final image should still feel like you. So don't try to copy, or because if you try to copy a style or emulate because this is hot, you will ultimately become the cheap version of that.
Yeah.
And then so people will be like, oh, we can't get the top person. We could just go to you and we can underpay you. So I really value, photographers who have a creative eye, that has a vision, that you see throughout the work. It's one of those things where it's like when you see something you love and it's just hard, you can't put into words, but you just like, or when you're photographing and you're trying to edit and you're trying to find a shot and you're like, that's the shot. It's hard to put into words, but you just know when everything clicks.
Yeah.
So I always say you have to be honing, you have to continue to keep shooting and understand, okay, like if I'm getting into this food photography and I want to shoot for these top brands, okay, I need to start. Maybe you're taking a self-assessment of your own work. Maybe you're not there yet. You're just going to continue to build. You're going to continue to shoot. You're going to continue to do, collaborations with other people just to continue to build up that portfolio to get there.
Yeah, and I like what you're saying about like that continual
Mhm.
like analysis of what you're
Mhm.
doing too, because yeah, I think for I don't know, probably like 10 years ago or so, it was very like taboo to look at other people in the industry and even just like looking and analyzing what they're doing, like, okay, what does this look like, how are they lighting this, what
Mhm.
is what's this position, how did they have this thing positioned, or like did they
Mhm.
photoshop this thing out that was holding
Mhm.
it, like all of that kind of stuff, because it was seen as you don't want to be a copycat, you don't want to
Mhm.
be just trying to be them.
Mhm.
But I like the point that you're making of like, look at them, analyze what they're doing,
Mhm.
bring it in as like steps and tools that you can use
Mhm.
with your creativity to make it yours, instead of just like, let me do everything that they did, do
Mhm.
it over here. And then, yeah, like you said, you become the cheap version that everyone's just like, well, if you can't get them, go with John. He's the cheap one that, they'll be decent. You'll
Mhm.
get like one or two shots maybe.
And here's the thing, I don't like, I know it's tough, but I say, okay, yeah. First, the stepping off is like, hey, I admire this photographer. I admire this lighting. Let me learn how this person does it,
Yeah.
learn it,
Mhm.
do it. But now you need to do your own twist on it. And
Mhm.
I think that separates like what you see the top brand photographers or top photographers. I always say, with now that AI is coming in, AI is only going to hurt photographers who are mid and below. Where if you look at their work, you could be like, AI can do that better, then you're in trouble, because people are willing to pay for good quality, work for art, because that's something that AI still cannot. Well, I don't think ever can do, because again, I feel like creativity is still connected to being human,
Yeah.
because you still need that brain to be able to see that vision
Mhm.
and be
It's
able
like the
to articulate it.
Yeah, it's like that difference between a good photo and a great photo. Like
Mhm.
some people, the average person, sure, like the person
Mhm.
scrolling on Facebook who's seeing all these AI generated,
Mhm.
cats holding soldiers and stuff, and they're just like, "Wow, this is real," and
Mhm.
like they're the average person may not be able to tell the difference between a good photo and a great photo, except maybe
Mhm.
every now and then a great photo just kind of like hits different. But the creative directors, the
Mhm.
art directors,
Yep.
they can tell the difference
Yeah.
between a good photo and a great photo. And yeah,
100%.
yeah, I think you're 100% right. Of like, AI is not here to take our jobs. AI is here for us to use as tools,
Mhm.
to be more efficient at our jobs. But yeah, the whole AI generating uh, photos, like that's really taking out the bottom rung of photographers who are just not great. Like they're not making great photos.
Mhm.
Yeah. And yeah, going back to that, like taking the tools and then using your creativity to build something with those
Mhm.
tools, that's going to get you to that great photo. And that will, just as in any genre of photography, I'm primarily a wedding photographer. um,
Mhm.
I could easily go look at Jose Villa. I could look at
Mhm.
Jason Vincent. I could look at like these big wedding photographers and then try and emulate exactly what they're doing. And I would be the
Mhm.
cheap version of Jose Villa. They're like, well,
And
if
you
we
don't
can't,
want that. I don't want you that for photographers.
no, I wanna get up there with them, but in a different way. That people are looking at
Mhm.
my stuff and being like, oh yeah, I can tell this is John's, or I can
Mhm.
tell this is
Exactly.
the we're
That's
hiring
what
you
you want.
because of this. Yeah, yeah. And the same with taking brand photography photos is
Yeah.
you want people to be like, okay, I saw what you did for this brand. I want you to
Exactly.
do your magic with mine, not I want you to pose my products the exact same way that you did for this other one.
You're speaking my language. That's what I always say. Like that's what you want. Like that's a red flag. Now, here's the thing. I always will tell photographers, look, if you get that step and repeat your client that, it's just like paint by the numbers, but they pay you so much where it's like, oh, my mortgage is paid off right for a year or something like that. Okay, you can take
Mhm.
those jobs. Don't put it in your portfolio. Just do the
Right.
jobs, get it done. But at the end of the day, you want someone to come and appreciate what you do and be like, I love what you do. Maybe there got to be some minor tweaks, obviously, or something like that. But you shouldn't be like, okay, if you're a black and white, film photographer and someone's coming to you, I love your work. Now I need you to shoot all in color and digital. That's a red flag for me. It's
Yeah.
like, you don't
But have you seen
understand.
my
Yeah.
portfolio?
Yeah, exactly. There's a disconnect where it's like there's a reason why people specialize in certain things. Not saying specialize in certain niches like food and still life and portraiture,
Mhm.
because again, first I think people are, most photographers are passionate about it, and you can always see the passion. So when I see a photographer who's trying to do everything in a niche, I'm like, okay, this is great, and I know you love it, but these other things need work. And I always say, don't look at it as like it's not that you can't shoot every niche. I always say master one, say
Mhm.
portrait, and then say, okay, this is my visual, aesthetic and style. Now, how do I apply it to now? I want to try to do still life. Or, for example, when I was working with a food photographer, amazing at food, I would hire her. I don't have to worry about it. But then she wanted to get into portraiture. Okay, it wasn't up to snuff at that time to be able to say, because again, food and chefs, naturally you want to have that transition. But I
Right.
told her, it's like, okay, just start shooting people, start shooting, how does your style, what you do with food, apply to portraiture? You know what I mean? Where it's comparable. Because I always say, when you look at some, that's why I say do your research, because you'll see some of these photographers that you admire, they're shooting different things, but you see the consistency. You don't see like they're great with this, and then all of a sudden a drop in this other area. There's a consistency because they have figured out how to apply what they do to
Mhm.
multiple genres,
Yes.
niches.
Yeah. There's for the regular listeners, if y'all have been around a while, I had Oak and Iron photo on, I don't know, a year or two ago now. But
Mhm.
they're very known for like double exposure photos and
Mhm.
very like artsy, like the photos that you just look at and you're like, oh wait, what is going on here, and like that kind of stuff. And they're primarily like wedding and family, but they also get a lot of tattoos, and they've kind of like made friends with tattoo shops, and they'll go and take brand photos and lifestyle kind of
Mhm.
branding of them tattooing people and just them at work. But it's still like they do double exposures with them, and they still
Mhm.
have their same, it's not a complete different like, all right,
Different.
let's set up some studio lighting and let's do this, and like because this is what brand photos are supposed to
Mhm.
be. And like they still kept their own, so whenever you see those, just like, oh, that's Oak and Iron. But this is different. This isn't a wedding. This isn't a couple. This is like someone actively tattooing somebody. So yeah, like there is a lot to finding your secret sauce,
Mhm.
that then you can put that secret sauce on a pizza
Mhm.
or put the secret sauce on some tacos, and
Mhm.
it's gonna
Yep.
taste like you made it because you had that sauce. For someone who's wanting to get in, maybe they've done
Mhm.
no brand photos at all.
Mhm.
They've maybe they haven't even like started a business yet. They're like, I want
Mhm.
to jump into this. Do you recommend that they kind of like put a foot in all the different niches of like food photography, portraiture, brand products, or just kind of like see, like start with one, try and master it, and then branch out?
So I'm gonna sound like a broken record. So if I was like, if you're brand new and you're like, I want to shoot for brand, first go back to, like I said, those questions of like, what do you ultimately want to be doing with your photography? What do you want to be shooting? So maybe it's multiple things. Maybe it's like, I want to shoot Taco Bell, but I also want to shoot Nike, and I want to shoot still life and stuff like that. Really understand, first get research and understand the kind of the genre and kind of what's out there. Then you can experiment. Because I would say, if you build a strong foundation of the research and understand what you need to be doing, then when you're experimenting, you're not wasting time and money, because you know, okay, maybe let's start with the food photography and still life kind of going parallel. And then maybe you start gravitating towards one or another, and you're kind of like, okay, I really like the still life versus food. That was like, I liked it, but I wasn't really passionate. And are you going to put your all in it? Because again, when you're shooting for brands, again, you're dealing with the budget, and you're dealing with time and money, where they're not going to give you, like, you're not going to have like a second research. You got to get it done. And, when you're there. So I always say, understand what you want to shoot, start experimenting, and how you can do that. Because a lot of people like, I don't have the funds to be doing all these test shoots or something like that. I always say collaborations are your friend, because I'm like, start with your local businesses, like a mom and pop, restaurant, or maybe you want to shoot hotels and be in that space and hospitality, where some local boutiques or peer space where you can rent out spaces like for $50 an hour. You got to get creative. Or if you're in fashion, if you want to go in that range, or still life, start networking with other stylists or other people in that space, and maybe be like, hey, let's come together and do this project, and we all get something for our portfolios. They bring a certain thing to it. So I always say, really first, before you even start anything, really understand what you want to be trying to do. Do that research, write it down, make a mood board. This is kind of the look, feel, whatever. So you have that kind of initial, kind of data to start. So when you are now beginning to experiment, you're being able to make strategic decisions, and not just like, I'm just going to wing it. And then you're wasting a lot of time and money, as I say.
And then months down the line, you're like, actually, this was not what I needed to do. This was not what I was wanting. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
For pitching to do some collaborations like that, I know a lot of people are probably like, but like, how do I ask and not feel like I'm just like wanting to, take their stuff for free? Like, how can we pitch that to where it feels a little bit more like collaborative and really showing that they are receiving benefit from this as well?
You go at it like you were pitching someone, like for an idea on a project. You go in, you make I wouldn't say a pitch deck, but whatever what you feel like would be appropriate. And you just have a conversation like, hey, I always say about transparency, it's like, hey, I would love, always try to find a love of like, hey, if I love this mom and pop, I've always loved going here. I'm now trying to pivot into, more food photography, brand photography. And I would love to work with you on photographing, your new kind of menu lineup. And here's my, come with an idea, come with the concept, and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking, but I would love to collaborate. And hey, I would love to shoot this for free for you and let you have the images for you to use. And have that exchange of like, I just want to use these, for my portfolio basis, always and then being clear on the terms of like, you're not trying to make money off of this, or like they're able to use, the receiver of like the images are able to use it however they want. It's kind of like, but I always say, don't just go and be like, hey, I just want to shoot. No, come with a plan, come with like your concepts of what you're thinking, come into like, especially when you're like, try to make a connection. Don't just go out of the blue. Try to do that research of like, maybe you don't know the boutique owner or something like that, but try to find a connection, research their source, see how you can make that connection, and that your service can help them.
Yeah.
And be a service to them.
Yeah. No, I love the showing up with a plan. Because that takes you from just the random DM of, hey, I'd love to take photos of your stuff, to, hey, I have this. I love what you do, and I think this would be a really great shoot. Would you be interested? Because I've had those DMs of like, hey, I'd love to work together and have you photograph me. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, what are we talking about? Like, do you have something in mind? And then we can move forward. But yeah, it's just kind of like when you come to someone of just like, hey, I want to take photos of your stuff. It's like taking the ball and just like leaving it there instead of like going back and forth.
It's just you're saying like because to kind of piggy off your idea of like when you're trying to pitch brands of like you're sending me an email and it sounds like, dear sir, ma'am, I'm a photographer, I shoot food, versus hey, and trying to figure out the name of the person you should be contacting. Like I really loved what Nike did with the Black female basketball players in this ad campaign, and really trying to tie it back and like, oh, I also shoot portraits of athletes, and you're trying to always connect it back to first showing that you care and that you've done research and you're just not a rando, and then also presenting of like how you can be of service versus give me, and how are you helping to solve a problem for them. Because of like, again, with the food, example of like the mom and pop, restaurant, you can be like, oh, I just really noticed that you really need updated visuals, on your website and, on your menu items. And I would love to help with that. And I have an idea for a project that I would love to be able to include in my portfolio. And then you get the conversation started and then you hammer out the details.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I love that, like showing up in that way. Instead of like, I'll get these emails about like my YouTube videos or something. They're like, I can fix your YouTube. I'm like, don't come at me like that.
It's like
I don't
delete.
work with you now. I'm just
like delete,
auto delete, not even reading past the title. But yeah, like coming at someone instead of like, hey, I noticed that your website sucks and you need more photos of your food. It's like, I'd love to help you with like some elevated photos of the cuisine that you whatever it is, these artisanal pizzas that you make. And yeah, no, I love that of like showing your research that you actually care about working with them. And this isn't just a copy, paste, next brand, paste, dear sir, ma'am, here we go.
Because you never know if that can turn into something, because you never know, like I said, with like who people know. Because that person you may be like, oh, I actually know the executive of Taco Bell grandma, and we play bridge every night, every Tuesday night. And because they loved what you brought, and they're like, people, like I always say, you want to get into that referral loop, people will refer you to the moon. If they feel like you cared for them, they felt like, okay, you took care of them and you delivered high quality images to them,
Yeah. And you never know like the connections that are in the back end or the people. Like I just recently saw a TikTok of like all the different franchises that Shaquille O'Neal owns. And he like owns like 155 Guys stores and like all these different like Papa John's and like this different stuff. It's like you might pitch to someone to do something and they'd be like, actually, I own this other thing, but you didn't know that, and I do need photos of this. And then like you there's endless connections and a bunch of like behind the scenes that you don't know. So yeah, I love that. There's I don't know, is there like a in the brand world, is there like a blacklist of like these are the cheap versions, don't work with them kind of, or anything like that we should avoid getting into it?
To say the blacklist, I'm not saying it's permanent, and it's different for everyone, because the one thing going into, I think for photographers to understand is like every creative is different. Every people have their different likes and don't like, but there is, and again, I always preface this blacklist as, think about it if when you go to Yelp, or if you've had a bad negative experience at a place and you're like, never again. Same thing. It crosses over all industries. The same over here in brand world, editorial world, where, again, I'm always saying I'm not going to burn bridges, because you never know when you have to work with that person again. But there are lists, some are very, colorful and detailed. And some people are just like, I'm going to keep a mental list, and again, everyone's different. It's always like, it's so funny to look at different photo editors, directors, like how they organize their Rolodex. It's like, everyone's different on how they do that. But I always say is what gets people onto this quote unquote blacklist or something. It's just, you're not pleasant to work with. You're demanding, you don't make people feel safe on set, like, again, just overall just being an a-hole in a sense. And you're like, unprofessional, and people remember that. And I always say, this is why I preface like everyone's different, because you could have been like difficult, and I'm like, never again. And everywhere I travel, if your name come up, I'm like, I ain't gonna, unless I have to. That's why I say I never will burn bridges. But another editor or creative director might have a very positive experience with this photographer or something, or with you, and they're like, this person is cool, so I'm going to continue to work. So it's very kind of like nebulous, but like there is sometimes the photographer can be very universal, but just know that your reputation follows you, because we have on our side, we'll ask for, recommendations for, like, we're looking for this type of photographer. And remember, like, depending on the experience, they'll type in their little forms, like, do not work. Here's 10 paragraph answer why. Or they're like, no, work with this person. This was fabulous. So I always say, to avoid it, be nimble, be humble, be easy to work with, make our lives easy, because usually we're dealing with stakeholders and other people that we got to put out fires for. And we are hiring you as a photographer to solve the problem and be able to do what you do. I don't want to micromanage you. You should, if you say you can light, you should be able to light. You come to me only if, this broke and here's the solution that I'm going to, fix, or we need you to elevate something because a situation came up or something like that. But be just easy to work with, and it doesn't mean you have to be a walkover, be like walked over, or, you know what I mean, or taken advantage. It's like being able to command the space that you're in, making everyone feel seen and heard, be able to manage that, and and I always say the soft skill the most is have emotional intelligence of, like, maybe you're working with a difficult subject, be able to read the room and be like, okay, if this is not working, let's do this for it now, and then come back to it.
Yes. Instead of just like pushing and pushing and pushing.
Exactly.
And then you finally get that one, and now you have the rest of your shot list, and everyone's in a terrible mood.
It's like, I always say, like, in your world, like in wedding photography, getting that bridezilla to come down. Like, you're like, oh, I was able to tame that. Like, I was able to, like, those are the people that we want to work with over and over again, because we know you can handle yourself. You are, talent loves working with you, or people around, like, you were awesome. Like, if a stakeholder's coming to you, maybe it's like an editor or something, or maybe it's like the CEO, whatever, who was on set, and like, oh my God, this was an amazing photographer. He did, that's all good for us, because then when we're wanting to work with you again, it's an easy yes, versus this person was very difficult and people from other parts of the team does not like this person. So it makes it harder for us to pitch you again because of that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like y'all are the like wedding coordinators of the art industry, of just like, okay, yeah, because there's I talked to some coordinators and they're like, oh yeah, no, we have our coordinator circle and we have the photographers that we're just like, we hate it whenever the couples book them, because we're like, okay, they're always off the timeline, or they're always wanting to like pull the couple for an extra 30 minutes of portraits while the food is getting cold and people are hungry and all of that. And then they have their A-list of, these are the ones that when we see them on the call sheet, they're just like, I have no worries at all. This is great.
And that's where you want to be. That's where you want to be, because like I said, you will, like, it's the referral loop. People will refer you to, like, even if I haven't worked with you, but I just had a nice interaction, like I say at a portfolio review or something like that. I'm like, oh, I like their vibe. Like, cool, work with them, give them a chance, versus like if someone comes to me, and I always say, I'm not going to say not work with them, but I'm going to say, here's the red flags you should be looking out for, and just making sure you're like in check with this photographer on this. Up to you, because I never will say don't ever, unless I've been put into danger or the set has been in danger of any kind, and I'm like, just avoid like the plague. And that's rare. That's very rare. It's more of attitude kind of a thing, kind of with me. But I always say, you know, look, just here's my experience. Like I said, that's why I say it's very nuanced, because one bad experience with one person, they may be awesome to another person, you know, and they love working with them.
Could have been having an off day or
exactly,
you know, whatever.
But understand that the creative, you know, loop of like brands and editorial, I always say, is kind of encircled because it's getting smaller. We will jump jobs. You know, a lot of editorial jump to brand, and sometimes brands go to editorial. Not that much now, since editorial is kind of shrinking. But it's like literally the same kind of creative circle. So if the photographer had a problem with this person and they jump to, like, say, their dream brand, we will see. You know what I mean? Yeah. Again, it you know, can be a little political in a sense.
Yeah. But like, I can see how if you're more on the blacklist for some of the art directors, that it would be a lot harder to get jobs, and you're just like constantly pitching to work with this brand and work with this one. But when you go into every job as, I want this to be the best experience for everyone on set, the best experience for the client, for the client's clients who are going to be like seeing these photos and then taking action to purchase, and like all of that, if you're going in trying to elevate everything, then like I can see how it's just going to bring work to you. Like
100%.
Really, no matter what genre of photography you're in, if you just like go into every photo shoot in that way, referrals are coming back 100-fold, to where you're just like, I don't have to pitch that much anymore, because I have directors coming to me and being like, hey, I have this shoot coming up. Are you available? I'd love to work with you again. And I would much rather have my inbox full of those than my sent box full of pitches.
Exactly. And I always say, you know, that's the ultimate goal as a photographer. You know, you think of it whenever you're doing a job, you're being of service. And if you're having a bad day, you know, just leave it at the door. You know, obviously, you know, we know you're human. So if there's something happening and we need to be aware of it, please let us know, so we can, like, you know, how can we, you know, because I'm always saying I'm here to help. I don't know what I don't know if you're not telling me. But again, if it's like something, you know, where it's like, okay, this could be dealt like later, and it's not like it's an emergency or something, just show up as a professional. That's all you have to do. Show up as a professional, do your job, be pleasant to work with, and you will probably have no issues in this industry.
Yeah. And if you're listening and you're like, I have no idea how to like turn off that into my work mode, I do that with music. There's the Queen song, Don't Stop Me Now. I listen to that before every single photo shoot. And it's just like, it's a fun song, and I'm just singing along on my way to the shoot. And it like gets me out of whatever worries, whatever like, you know, day-to-day stuff that might be like kind of like weighing me down, and gets me into kind of like a palate cleanser of like, all right, cool. I'm energized. I'm ready to go take these photos, and I'm ready to go like direct people in what we're going to do, instead of like, all right, well, I'm here, so whatever. So if you have a good song, music works for me.
Do what you need to do. You know, music might work for some people. Sometimes it's meditation, sometimes just silence, running, walking, whatever works for you. But get into the zone and get the job done.
Yeah. Okay, Karen, I love that. This has been so good. Do you have any last words for everyone before we kind of wrap everything up?
And I would say one of the biggest things that's helped me, and you know, and understanding about the business of photography, and especially when you want to pivot into brand photography, understand like that is a whole new different ballgame of being a freelancer. Really understand your finances. Understand what is going to be required. Doesn't mean you have to have, I always say I'm cheap, so you don't have the top. I always say rent it first and see if you actually use it every day before you buy something. Can you get it used? You don't have to
Mhm.
have the most fanciest equipment. Like I said, rent, try to buy secondhand or something, but really do understand your finances of, okay, what do I need to make, to make this a sustainable living? And I always tell photographers sometimes when you're trying to pivot it into something new, you may have to have a 9 to 5 or still do what you were doing before and do kind of the new thing, part time and you're, parallel until you've built up that runway where you can kind of fully pivot and be like, okay, I can try this out for a year and I feel secure. Cause I always say I rather you be in a financial secure place when you're making, decisions versus taking any job. Because again, I feel like the kiss of death, if you taking any job, even if you take this job you thought was a piece of cake and you do horribly, like again, the referral of this person sucked and that gets around and that can kill you right there, dead in the water.
Yeah.
So understand the finances, understand that it's going to be highs and lows, and that again, you're working more of versus like a retail where you're getting 50% up and then you're getting 50% after, or the rest of the balance after that. You're now working into 30, 60, 90 days, net days, and you may not necessarily get an upfront cost.
Yeah.
So understanding the difference and going into that realm.
No, that is very good. I think we overlook finances and like what everything is going to take, and just see the fun things of, oh, I get to do this, and then you're in the middle of it, like, oh, I am negative in my account.
And it's so funny because photography will come to me like, but I want to work commercial because I can get like 10,000 a day, and it's like that is so. It's not doesn't work like that in a sense. Like the top, but sometimes I'm like, is your portfolio saying, your website saying it's $10,000 a day? And remember, whatever, depending on state, to the state you at, like I'm in California. Okay, half of that's to go into taxes right there. So I'm at 5,000. What's the expenses that I wasn't able to cover? If you have an agent or you have an assistant, do you have to pay? You know what I mean? Like that $10,000 gets shrunk real quick.
Now I'm at 1,200. Okay, this is very different.
You know what I mean? It sounds good. So that's why, and again, this is coming from like years ago when I got into tech and stuff, and I was like, whoa, this is a lot. I was doing mental budgeting. I was like, sure, I got paid this much. I think, cool. Like until someone sat me down and like, here's a spreadsheet of a budget, Karen. Let's start putting those numbers in. Let's start putting those numbers. And I'm like, I got wise. I got wise real quick. I was like, oh, not just my mind was doing it. It was like seeing the cold hard facts of like what I was coming in and what's coming out. And I always say it's freeing. People think it's limiting, but once it's freeing, you are in control of how, how you spend your money and what you do, with it. So I always say, again, when you're jumping a brand, it's a different kind of world, and it's not necessarily you're going to get consistent work. There's more photographers than jobs. And even like the top, what you see, oh my gosh, they're always, even they're still having to market and still network and still be able, because again, we can't hire necessarily the same person over and over unless you got like, you get a job at a brand that's like, their internal photographer, right?
Yeah.
But those are far rare and far begin. Like I've worked with them, but then I've seen with all the layouts, I don't see that hardly anymore because they rather go freelance. So understanding that you're going to be, this is going to be kind of like a different type of freelancing in a sense, and that jobs are limited depending on the niche, obviously depending on how you want to, go and stuff like that. Cause there's people in the commercial space that, works with these Fortune 500s and they're constantly getting work or in shoes or, fashion and e-com and all that stuff. So it really is niche dependent in a sense, depending, but like, especially like these bigger corporations, like I want to shoot for all these things all the time. There's just so many brand campaigns and understanding the ebbs and flows of when the economy is down, people are probably tightening up. And then when it's good, then they're like, let's spend all the money and let's do 10,000 shoots. Right. So just understanding that and being prepared.
Yeah. No, I think that's really good of just like, I know it's not fun to think of numbers and all of that, but we are business owners. Yeah. And as business owners, you need to know your numbers. You need to be in the finances, or at least outsource, hire, delegate to someone else who can do that, and then give you like
Mhm.
a rundown of your P&L of like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, this is good, or oh, this is, we need to make some
Mhm.
changes. So,
Exactly. So that's the number one I would kind of leave of like before you're like do that research and then
mhm,
understand your finances of because with that research you'll understand what is it really, what do I really need?
yeah.
Am I going to need to upgrade equipment? Am I going to need, and understanding where's those costs coming from and how are you going to get that?
hmm Okay, Karen, I love that. That is a really, really good point. Before we get into like where people can connect with you and get your
Mhm.
book and all of that, there's part of the show that I like to do where we talk about what we're loving this week, and it can be literally anything: new TV show, book, movie, whatever, new food. What are you loving this week?
I'm loving it quite, can I say it like in the past couple weeks?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Just what
Okay.
what what have you
I
loved
I
recently?
think I think the what I've loved recently first is The Pit. I have highly recommend the TV show The Pit on
I've
Max.
heard so many
It's
good
so good.
things. Okay,
It is
I have
so
not
good. You
watched it
need,
yet.
and now you can binge it. And I was doing the weekly. Okay, I was from the January beginning, and I had to look
Nice.
at it. I was like, dang it. So I highly recommend that. And I always warn people once you watch that because it's so realistic. I
Mhm.
mean, my mom watches Grey's Anatomy. She's still holding on to that, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't. I can't.
That's
That's
like,
not just for me anymore.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
The Pit is really good. I love that.
And that is like a hospital procedural kind of show, right?
No, so it is what I love about it. It's The Pit is it's basically one shift at the like in Pennsylvania, like it's called The Pit, emergency room, trauma level 1 or whatever that is. Or I don't, sorry, I can't quote, but it's like trauma 1 or something, emergency room. So
Okay.
it's one shift, 15 hours. Each episode is an hour. So you're starting
Oh,
at 7 a.m. and then you end whatever that was like 9 or 8 or something. And it's
oh, so
so
you're
good. Like
just
it's like, and it's
you're
how they
working the whole
shot it.
shift with them.
Exactly. And how they
Uh,
shot it continuously. They didn't do it out of order. So if a doctor showed up like, okay, this is the end of the night shift, so you're following the day shift, but then it transitioned into partly the night shift
mm,
because of the event. I don't want to give it away a spoiler, but it's
okay.
really, but those actors didn't go back on set until their episode was ready. So it's so funny. One of the actors was saying how it was like he was nervous because of how the people who were there for the day shift gelled, because again, they weren't shooting it out of order. So they were literally shooting it like, okay, here's the next hour and you're in that next
Mhm.
hour. So I
Yeah.
highly recommend that one.
Okay.
Andor that's now out. I've been loving that.
Yeah.
And then I love because I love set design and just creativity of music. Lady Gaga set from Coachella. Like I just the
Ooh,
artistry that goes into that. Like I
okay.
love stuff like I'm a nerd. I love art, all types of arts. I took 4 years of art history, so I've been loving seeing that whole set or that whole show and just how she like takes that inspiration from the operas and just so many different arts and just how just create. I just love
Yeah. Oh
it.
no,
Just love it. So that's what I've been loving.
I love that. I love like all of the details that go into sets like that.
Oh gosh, yes.
When the artist like puts in the work of like, well, this is
Yes.
this way, this is here because of this reference, and like all of those kind of Easter egg type things. So I've not had a lot of content of Coachella like coming up recently. So I will have to look that up of Lady Gaga's, because she's always doing interesting things. Like all the way back into like the meat dress era of Lady Gaga. Like she's always been out there.
You won't be able to. I stayed up the second night or the second weekend of Coachella. It was like 2 weeks ago, and where she had the microphone mishap just for 2 seconds. But and they don't have the full thing on YouTube. But I will say a performance that the Coachella channel has officially put out, one of hers,
Mhm.
is Poker Face. I just love how she's going against her old self on a chessboard, and I just love that performance. So if you want to
Okay.
look at a performance, at least a legitimate, not a fan, like
Yeah.
holding a camera or something like
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
they have that one out. And I just, it's just things like that where you're like that creativity of working with that team and with the music, and then just all the parallel, like you said, the Easter eggs and just how they put it together. Like chef kiss. Like
Yes.
I wish I could go to the Beyonce concert that's happening tonight in LA. Like the first one. Like it's just those things of like in their mind and how they're just thinking, and then when it works, it works.
I really like that a lot of these artists are not doing the just like I'm just showing up with my guitar and like some light shows, but like months and months of work and wardrobe and light and video and you know
It's
and practical
experience.
effects and everything all together. I mean, like the whole Taylor Nation, what was the
Eras
like,
tour.
year Eras tour, yeah, like that whole thing. Like we just watched it on Disney Plus, and I was just like, this was so much, and like going into this, no wonder this was so huge.
And again, like I said, and it's so, and when you look at those different artists, like just what I mentioned, and it's like so different, but you know, tailored to their fans, obviously, but it's like the, you know, even though when you look at Taylor, you might think, oh, it's so simple. She's just going through all her, but it's just so integral at the same time when you look at it, and you're like, wow. And those like I said, the queen of Easter eggs you know, so that's what I've been loving.
Okay. I love all of that. That's so great. Okay. I'm definitely going to check out that Lady Gaga chess poker face video later today. Awesome. Okay. I have been loving a show is on Apple TV Plus called Extrapolations.
Okay.
It was just one of those that like I think I finished the recent season of Silo, and it was like, you'd probably like this. And I was like, okay. and it's really interesting. I had no idea what it was about, but it's like it's set kind of in semi-future, but like each episode goes further into the future. And like future of like, I think the first one is like 2037 or something. So it just like keeps going further and further, and it's all about like the effects of climate change and like what we're doing. And like in the first episode, Daveed Diggs shows up, and I was like, Daveed, okay, this is gonna be good. I love him. And like there's a bunch of, because it's like moving a decade or a couple of decades at a time, a lot of the characters don't, like, it's almost like an anthology kind of thing where it's like a whole new cast in the next one. So it's really interesting. It was a cool show. Daveed plays a rabbi, so I was like, this is interesting. But yeah, it's an interesting kind of show, and like great plot and idea and writing, and just like some really great actors too.
What freaks me out is whenever they talk about like the future and always like climate change. Like, I do not want to see this right now. I feel like it's too weird. It's almost like the Hunger Games, where it's like, that's supposed to be in the future, y'all. Like, how close are we to this future? I feel like it's a little close to home.
Yeah,
but I have to check it out.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it. I think it was really good. I enjoyed it. But yeah, well, awesome. Karen, where can people find you online? Where can they find your book and all the things?
Okay, so you can find me at blackvisualqueen.com, and then all my socials at Black Visual Queen. You can find the book via my website, blackvisualqueen.com/book, or you can go to Amazon or Book.org or Bookshop.org, or, you know, where, you know, basically books are sold, you know, everywhere, and pick up the book, The Photo Hustle.
Perfect. Okay, awesome. Yeah, and I will have links for all of that, and all that for all you listeners. You can go grab The Photo Hustle. But yeah, thanks so much for being on the show, Karen. I really enjoyed getting to chat today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, thanks everyone for watching live and watching the replay, and I will see you for the next episode. Bye, y'all.